Let's bring in the chief White House correspondent for the New York Times, Peter Baker, NBC News national affairs analyst and partner, and chief columnist at Puck, John Heilemann, also special correspondent, Vanity Fair, host of Fast Politics podcast, and MSNBC political analyst, Molly Jong-Fast. Peter, let's start with you. We had Claire McCaskill on earlier this morning, and I was just referencing, you remember it, back in 2009, those town hall meetings. Barack Obama had just won a massive landslide. He had 59 Democratic senators. Everything was going their direction. Then they started debating the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. And you started seeing these town hall meetings with these popular Democrats starting to answer really tough questions from their constituents. This, of course, is starting to happen. But if you were Claire or these other members of Congress, you had answers because these bills were going through subcommittees and committees and then going onto the House floor. That congressman last night, he had no idea. He just had no idea what's going on because really very few people have any idea what's going on. And there's a word, I'm sorry to keep going here, but there's a word that one of the constituents said last night that really stood out, and that is sloppy. This is so sloppy. This is so haphazard. This is actually a chainsaw approach. And Democrats just have to be over the moon right now. They've got their image of Elon Musk. He's got the chainsaw held up in the air, and it's a split screen there. And on the other side, you have medical research being slashed, workers being cut from the NIH. You've got FAA workers being cut. You've got TSA workers being cut. You've got the IRS agents that deal with working class and middle class Americans who call to get their refunds in a timely manner. All of this is going on. And Democrats finally, it looks like Democrats are finally being given some issues that they can really start to work on.
Yeah, I mean, look, there is a legitimate and important debate to have about the size of government and whether an agency is performing well, whether it has the right number of people, too many, too few. All that's true. That's not what's happening here. We're not having a thoughtful debate about the size of government and where things make sense and where they don't. We're just seeing, as he shows with that image at CPAC, taking a chainsaw to it. And I think that they love that image because it makes them look manly and, powerful, and they're taking on the deep state. And that's appealing on some level to a lot of MAGA Republicans. On the other hand, there are a lot of people who voted for Trump who do think the government needs to be reined in, but don't like, as that constituent said, a sloppy, haphazard approach where they're firing the nuclear safety people one day and oops, they have to rehire them the next, or the bird flu people one day are fired. Oops, we need to rehire them again. That's not a thoughtful and smart way of going things in the view of a lot of Republicans who think that there ought to be a methodical and important debate here. Now, a lot of Republicans say, look, we've tried having that over the years, didn't work, so let's give this a shot, see what happens. But the political costs could eventually backlash on Trump and Elon Musk.
A couple days ago, John Heilemann, I talked about going back to Washington for the 30th anniversary of our class of 1994. And there are a lot of us very proud of the fact that we went up there when everybody said there's no way we could balance the budget. We went up there, and with the help of a lot of people, we balanced a budget for the first time in a generation. We balanced it 4 years in a row for the only time over the past 100 years. And I was struck by what Newt Gingrich said when he was talking about how that happened. He said it was hard work. It was hard work for the subcommittee members. It was hard work for the committee members. It was hard work for John Kasich and the Budget Committee. He said, people ask us, how did we do it? He said, it was really hard. It took 235 people all working together, trying to figure out how to balance a budget, keep the economy strong, and balance 1,000 different interests, right? You've had none of that here. And again, the word the constituent said last night, sloppy. That's what you've got here. So this idea that Republicans, all Republicans, want a guy wielding a chainsaw and just slashing NIH budgets, slashing USAID budgets. There are some of us who are very proud of what George W. Bush did with PEPFAR, saving 25 million lives in Africa, slashing FAA, slashing TSA. I'm sorry, I'll just say it. That's not what a lot of Republicans voted for Donald Trump for.
Right. And 100%, Joe. And the thing I keep reflecting on in these moments as you talk about that era, and of course, you know, in that era when you guys balanced the budget those 4 consecutive years, you also had something else. You had hard work and political necessity and compromise on the part of Bill Clinton in the White House, who had, you know, realized that if he didn't get on board the balanced budget train, he was going to not get reelected in 1996. And so, you know, that's not here either, right? That was the effort, the amount of effort it took to achieve what you guys achieved needed all of that hard work on the Republican side. It also needed to have a partner on the other side of the aisle, in the Democrats, who many of whom did not want to balance the budget, but Bill Clinton realized the political necessity of it. Yeah?
Yeah. I just wanted to say, John, I'm so glad you brought up Bill Clinton, because we both did. Both parties worked together. Right. Even in the middle of, like, political fighting, Bill Clinton worked with Newt Gingrich. Even in the middle of impeachment, they were calling each other and talking on Iraq, on the budget. They continued talking, but also they made tough choices. I got elected in part because I ran against Bill Clinton's tax increases in 1993. Those tax increases in 1993 that elected a lot of us Republicans, that helped in balancing the budget. Just like in 95 and 96, a lot of people that came in with me lost their elections because they made a lot of spending cuts that weren't really popular. So you had Democrats, Bill Clinton and Democrats, making sacrifices, a lot of people losing their political jobs, and Republicans doing the same thing a couple years later and taken together with parties working together, and Leon Panetta as budget director and John Kasich as the chairman of the budget committee, everybody working together, and a remarkable thing happened. We did something that we haven't done in a century.
And so here's the thing about this, Joe, that the point that I want to get at is you and I and Peter Baker and Molly and pretty much everyone who comes on this show can have a conversation where we all know what we're talking about here. This history is familiar to us. We lived through it. We reported on it. We were in the Congress, in your case, during it. We know this history, and it's illustrative. It's illuminating of what's going on now. A lot of these dynamics in Washington we see them recur over and over again throughout history. I'll tell you someone who doesn't know this history. I bet every dollar in your pocket is Elon Musk, who could not have this conversation. And everything that he does reflects not just a kind of ignorance about how the government works, how to approach if you were serious about trying to take on the size and scope of government in a way that was politically sustainable and humane, and even in some ways pretty radical, you would not do it this way. You would not do it with a chainsaw. So if he knew the history, he wouldn't be going about it this way if he was trying to go about it in good faith. And if he knew the history of our politics, he would know that brandishing a chainsaw at CPAC is very popular among a very small part of the Republican Party. Brandishing a chainsaw at CPAC is also very popular among a lot of Democrats who will use that in campaign ads going forward. You know, you live by the chainsaw, die by the chainsaw. That is a guy who does not know the story of George Bush and the mission accomplished sign and what kind of damage those kind of images could do politically to a party. I just think, you know, this is one of these things where for everyone who's been freaking out about what's been happening here, they're right to freak out. There's a lot of serious bad stuff happening. But, you know, to everything there's a season. And as you're starting to see in these town halls, the seasons are about to start changing on Trump and Elon Musk.
Yeah, perhaps more rapidly than expected. And